Yo, what up? It's Papa Keith. People Matter, 103.5 The Beat. I'm here with Madison. She goes to North Broward Prep.
Yes, I'm Madison McEwen, and I'm representing the League of Women Voters, Broward County. We are a nonpartisan organization.
Thank you so much. Listen, we're about to kick off the amendments. A lot of people are scared. They don't understand. Some things are bundled. We're going to try to help you work through it. You know what I mean? So we're going to pick some of amendments that may be kind of like close to us. Maybe we have a better understanding of it. But check it out.
What's up, buddies? Your boy Andy Pita from 294.9, donde viven tus hits. Let's kick things off with Amendment 1.
Amendment number 1 is about property taxes that homeowners pay. It would increase what is called the homestead exemption by $25,000. If you own a home that has an assessed value of over $100,000, then your yearly tax bill could be reduced by a few dollars to around $300. But if your home is valued at less than $100,000, you wouldn't see any tax reduction. Voting yes to Amendment 1 would reduce property taxes for many homeowners, but would also reduce the amount of money that cities and counties take in to provide services like police, fire departments, libraries, and roads. Voting no to Amendment 1 would keep the current homestead exemption at $50,000.
That is amazing. So make sure to vote. I'll be right back.
Hey, it's Frankie P from Y100. Of course, we have a very important day coming up November 6th, talking about voting, and there's a lot of amendments that are very confusing, so I have someone here that is going to break it down for us.
I'm Madison McEwen, and I'm going to be talking about the Second Amendment. This amendment is about property taxes for non-homesteaded property like rental apartments, business properties, and vacation homes. Right now, increases in property assessed values are capped at 10% per year, but this rule is about to expire. This amendment would make the 10% rule permanent. This means that even if property values increase dramatically, the amount on which owners pay taxes couldn't increase by more than 10% each year. Voting yes on Amendment 2 would make this rule permanent. Voting no on Amendment 2 would remove any caps on non-homesteaded property. If property values increase, then cities and counties would have more tax revenue. On the other hand, increases in taxes also usually mean higher rent payments for renters and greater expenses for businesses.
So if you didn't get that the first time, you could always just restart the video and listen to the entire thing again, because that's probably what I'm going to have to do. Thank you so much, and don't forget to vote November 6th.
And early voting is October 22nd through November 4th.
All right, now let's talk about Amendment number 3.
Amendment 3 has to do with casino gambling. Right now, only the legislature can approve new casinos in the state of Florida. This amendment would take that authority away from the legislator. It would give voters the exclusive right to decide through a citizen-initiated ballot question. Casino supporters would need to collect at least 740,000 voter signatures to put a casino gambling question on the ballot. Then, 60% of Florida voters would have to approve. Amendment 3 would not affect the casinos that are already approved in Broward and Dade counties, and they would not affect any casino located on the Seminole tribe land. Voting yes to Amendment 3 would give voters the exclusive right to approve new casinos. It would likely make it more difficult to approve new casinos. Voting no to Amendment 3 would allow the legislator to authorize casino gambling.
All right, we're going to keep things going. Papa Keith here with Madison. Let's go to Amendment 4.
So Amendment 4 grants former returning citizens who have completed all parts of their sentences the right to vote. This would exclude those convicted of murder or felony sex crimes. Right now, returning citizens are permanently banned from voting. In order to regain their rights, they must wait 5 years before they can apply to the clemency board to have their voting rights restored. It usually takes another 5 years before they can get a hearing before the clemency board. Florida's only 1 in 3 states in the nation that permanently disenfranchises returning citizens. This means that about 10% of otherwise eligible Florida voters are excluded from voting.
That's 1.4 million people. So this is a big one. We're talking Amendment number 4 here. Very important, so make sure you get out and vote.
Voting yes to Amendment 4 would restore voting rights to returning citizens who have completed all parts of their sentences. It would exclude those convicted of murder and felony sex crimes. Voting no to Amendment 4 would maintain the lifetime voting ban and require that returning citizens wait 5 years before applying to the clemency board.
Now, I don't know if you know, but the clemency board is 4 people that makes these decisions, and they don't have to explain why. They don't have to tell anybody why, or they can ask any question they want. Hey, what's your favorite color? And make decisions based off of that. So this is an important one.
What's going on, guys? It's DJ Sama from 93.9 MIA doing afternoons from 2 to 7, and I'm hanging out with the very lovely Madison.
Thank you. So here we're going to be talking about Amendment 5. This amendment is about taxes. Right now, it takes a simple majority to approve any new state taxes or fees. These taxes include state sales taxes, gasoline taxes, license fees, and etc. This amendment would require a 2/3 vote of both the Senate and the House to raise taxes, but it would also mean that just 1/3 of either of the House of the Senate or the House could block any new tax to block or any attempts to close special tax breaks for corporations and special interests. Voting yes to Amendment 5 would require a 2/3 vote of Senate and House to increase state taxes or fees. Voting no to Amendment 5 would continue allowing the Senate and the House to increase state taxes or fees with a simple majority vote.
And to get your vote on, make sure to go on my blog for early voting at 939mia.com, keyword DJ Sama.
Go out and vote November 6th.
In the famous words of DJ Khaled, another one. We're going on amendment number 6 this time. What up, it's your boy Papa Keith here with Madison, and you're doing a fabulous job.
Thank you.
Watch out for her.
Amendment 6 is a bundled amendment, and voters need to consider all parts of the amendment since they can't be voted on separately. This means that if you like one part of the amendment but you don't like another, you might want to consider voting against it.
Yeah, that's something to think about. I don't know why they do this, but they do it. So you have to really pay attention and understand what you're getting yourself into. But make sure that you vote, you know? But if it's something that you don't understand, vote against it if you can.
So let's take a look at what this amendment does. It does 3 different things. First, it vastly expands the rights of victims, and it also limits some rights of the accused. Second, it would require that the judges retire at the age of 75 rather than at age 70. Third, it requires that judges interpret state laws and rules rather than relying on the state agencies to interpret the laws.
So these all 3 are bundled together under one Amendment 6. So what would voting yes do?
Well, voting yes to Amendment 6 would expand the rights of victims and limit the right of the accused. It would raise the retirement age of judges to 75, and it would also require that judges interpret state rules. Whereas voting no to Amendment 6 would retain the existing rights of victims and accused. It would keep the retirement age of judges at 70, and it would allow state agencies to interpret rules.
Madison, you're so cool. Great job. Listen, take these amendments very seriously. Do the research, get more information about it, and make the best decision that you're comfortable with. But most of all, get out and vote.
Go vote.
All right, Madison, I think we're ready to move on to Amendment 7.
So this is another bundled amendment, and voters need to consider all parts of the amendment since they can't be voted on separately. This means that if you like one part of the amendment but don't like another, you may want to consider voting against it. This amendment does 3 different things. First, in order to add or raise fees at state colleges and universities, 2/3 of the trustees would have to vote yes. Second, it would add the state college system, formerly known as community colleges, to the Constitution. Third, it would require employers or the state to pay an additional death benefit to survivors of first responders and members of the military who were killed in the line of duty. Voting yes to Amendment 7 would require a 2/3 vote of college or university trustees to increase or add fees. It would name the state college system in the Constitution, and it would require an additional death benefit to survivors of first responders and military members killed in the line of duty. Voting no to Amendment 7 would allow university and college trustees to add or increase fees by a simple majority. It would not add the state college system named to the Constitution, and it would continue to pay the current death benefits for first responders, but would not add any new death benefits.
And remember, you can't make a change if you don't vote, all right? And for more on early voting, you can click on my blog at 939mia.com, keyword DJ Sama.
Go out and vote November 6th.
Hey, what's going on? It's Drew from WIOD, and let's move on to Amendment number 9.
Amendment number 9 is a bundled amendment, and voters need to consider all parts of the amendment since they can't be voted on separately. This means that if you like one part of the amendment but don't like another, you might want to consider voting against it. This amendment does 2 separate things. First, it would prohibit offshore drilling beneath waters controlled by the state of Florida. Florida waters extend about 9 miles on the west coast and 3 miles on the east coast. Oil tankers would still be permitted to travel through Florida waters. Amendment number 9 also would prohibit the use of e-cigarettes, also called vaping, at indoor workplaces. Voting yes to Amendment number 9 would ban offshore drilling in state waters, and it would add vaping restrictions to the Constitution. Voting no to this amendment would keep offshore drilling banned and vaping restrictions out of the Constitution.
Make sure you go vote November 6th.
Early voting is October 22nd through November 4th. Go vote.
All right, so moving on to Amendment number 10.
So Amendment 10 is another bundled amendment, and voters need to consider all parts of this amendment since they can't be voted on separately. This means that if you like one part of the amendment but don't like another, you might want to consider voting against it. Amendment 10 does 4 different things. First, it requires that the legislature meets in January rather than March in election years. This wouldn't really change anything since legislature already does this. Second, it creates an Office of Counterterrorism within the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. These duties are currently assigned to the Department of Law Enforcement already. Third, it requires that the state have a Florida Department of Veterans Affairs. Florida already has a Department of Veterans Affairs, it just isn't required to have one. Fourth, this amendment would require that it requires that all Florida counties elect rather than appoint the 5 constitutional officers, which are sheriff, tax collector, property appraiser, supervisor of elections, and clerk of court. Some counties, like Broward and Miami-Dade, have charters that allow appointment rather than election of one or more of the constitutional officers. Voting yes to Amendment 10 would require the legislature to meet in January in election years. It would require an Office of Counterterrorism. It would also require a Florida Department of Veterans Affairs. Amendment 10 would also require that all counties elect rather than appoint the constitutional officers. Voting no to Amendment 10 would not constitutionally require January legislative sessions. It would not require an Office of Counterterrorism. It would not require a Department of Veterans Affairs, and it would allow charter counties to decide whether to elect or appoint constitutional officers.
Absolutely, and if you want to vote early, I have the dates posted right now, WIOD100.com, keyword Drew. Check that out.
Go out and vote.
Hey, I'm Megan. Let's now get to Amendment 11.
So Amendment 11 is another bundled amendment, and voters need to consider all parts of this amendment since they can't be voted on separately. That means if you like one part of the amendment but not the other, you may want to consider voting against it. Amendment 11 does 3 separate things. First, this amendment deletes obsolete language that prohibits non-citizens from buying, owning, and selling property. This language is placed in the Constitution in the 1920s, and it's never been removed, but Florida has no laws to enforce it, and the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution would prohibit this from happening. The second thing that Amendment 11 does is it would delete a provision that forces the state to prosecute and sentence criminal suspects under the laws that they were originally charged under, even if a new law reduces the sentencing or changes how the accused is prosecuted. Third, this amendment deletes obsolete language having to do with high-speed rail in Florida. Voting yes to Amendment 11 would delete the unenforceable language about alien property rights. Amendment 11 would also eliminate the requirement that criminal suspects must be charged and tried under old laws. It would delete language about high-speed rail that no longer applies. Voting no to Amendment 11 would leave the obsolete language in the Constitution.
And don't forget to vote this November 6th.
Go out and vote.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Andy Pita, más rico que la papa frita, from 294.9, donde viven tus hits. And now let's get serious and move on to Amendment 12.
Amendment 12 expands the ethics rules that applies to elected officials and government employees when they leave their positions. Right now, elected officials have to wait 2 years before they can become paid lobbyists. This amendment would require that they have to wait 6 years before they can lobby local, state, or government offices. This legislator would determine how this rule would be enforced and define the consequences. Voting yes to Amendment 12 would require that government officials wait 6 years before they may lobby local, state, or federal offices. Voting no would keep in place the 2-year ban on paid lobbying.
Don't forget to vote October 6th. In November.
No. November 6th is when voting is.
Oh yeah, I knew that. Yeah, and if you want to find out more about early voting, check out my blog in 294.9fm.com. Check out your boy Annie Pita.
All right, so I'm Annie, and we are back with Madison, and we are at the last and final amendment, and something that actually is really important to me.
So Amendment 13 would ban wagering on any type of dog racing beginning in 2021. It would allow dog tracks to continue offering other types of already approved gambling. Florida is home to 12 of the 18 dog tracks in the United States. It is also one of 10 states that allow dog racing. Voting yes to Amendment 13 would ban betting on dog racing, whereas voting no to Amendment 13 would continue to allow betting on dog racing.
So don't forget, you have to go out and vote November 6th.
And early voting is October 22nd through November 4th.
See you at the polls.
What's going on, beautiful people? Your girl Stitchy is here. Hopefully this sequence of videos breaking down the amendments was helpful to you. I know it was definitely helpful to me, but I gotta give a special shout out not only to our personalities, but also to Miss Maddie.
Thank you.
Girl, you're doing your thing, honey.
Thank you.
High school student, you gotta look out for her. And we also had help from
the League of Women Voters, Broward County.
Perfect. And if you want more information about not only getting civically involved, but also the election process, early voting, all that good stuff, where can they go?
Vote411.org.
And you can check out your Supervisor of Elections office website. You'll have all the information there. Broward, Dade, Palm Beach, boom, you'll check it out. So November 6th, what are we gonna do?
Go out and vote.
Boom. And if you can't vote, it's okay. Try to find somebody who can and vote together and just like go together and make the experience awesome. November 6th and early voting information.
See you at the polls.
You can get the information again?
Vote411.org.
Don't say we didn't tell you.